There are only a few brushes that every single professional artist use in their artworks, but although you might be using them already, I can guarantee that you are not using them to their fullest potential. So in this video, I'll show you exactly how pro artists push these seemingly basic brushes to their limit in order to create insanely detailed and impactful paintings. Watch till the end because learning how to master the most fundamental of tools can easily save you hundreds of hours throughout your art career. The first brush is actually more like a category of brushes. Everyone basically uses this one brush but with slight variations. You've likely seen it before but never fully understood. It's the textured painterly brush. But here's where things get interesting. Most artists, especially beginners, use these brushes the wrong way, of course. Beginners usually throw textured brushes onto the canvas at the very end, treating them like an afterthought or an effect. A little bit of noise here, some rough texture there, and done, right? I mean, it's good and it works, but that's missing the real potential. So how should we actually use these brushes? What do professional artists do? Well, after analyzing hundreds upon hundreds of time lapses and artworks by professional artists, I can say that they don't treat these brushes as effects. They use them as the foundation of the entire painting process. And this is done in a few ways. From the first few strokes, they're already thinking about texture and form. They layer these brushes carefully, keeping opacity and flow low, and building up subtle, rich textures gradually. They'll use different layers of pen pressure to control not only opacity, but the actual feel of the surface. The purpose of this is that this creates a dynamic, realistic sense of material right from the start, rather than flat colors that require a lot of overpainting later. Here's something you can try next time. Pick one solid textured brush, set the opacity pretty low, like 20 to 50%, and then start building your painting using controlled strokes. A low opacity will make controlling the texture of the brushes easier. Now, the tricky thing is, most textured brushes out there are either too rough or too gimmicky. While having multiple choices is good, you don't need hundreds. Just one really good one is enough. Another tip I have for you is an important one, and this is to work zoomed out when texturing. This will make it much easier for you to work on the overall forms of the painting without worrying too much about how the texture currently looks. Because you shouldn't be afraid if there seems to be too much texture at the start. Once you further render your painting, this will balance out. But importantly, there will still be some hints of the texture you had, and this will greatly help the appeal of the painting. But an advanced tip I have for you is to try subtractive texture. This means using the textured brush as an eraser in order to add texture. Lots of artists just use textured brushes to paint on bits of texture, but erasing parts to include texture is just as powerful. So in general, try to just focus on incorporating some textured brushes into your art, and you'll quickly see how your art can transform. That's why, to make things even easier for you, I've shared my top favorite textured brushes that I've carefully tweaked and perfected after hundreds of hours of painting, optimized exactly how the pros use them. They're available on my website in the description below, along with the other brushes you'll see later in this video. The next brush is one that everyone, including you, has definitely used before, and yet very few people use correctly, and you'll see why soon. Anyways, this is the soft brush. What makes the soft brush so powerful? Well, it is because of its ability to quickly render smooth, dimensional forms, especially spherical ones like cheeks, shoulders, and eyeballs. It mimics the way light naturally wraps around curved surfaces, letting you build volume with just a few careful strokes. But this is all made infinitely more powerful when paired with these two other tools, the clipping mask and/or the lasso tool. It's a match made in heaven. You can isolate specific zones like the hair and build up ambient lighting or color tints without fear of color bleeding outside. And that's huge. Think of it like this. The soft brush alone is like a spotlight. You can shine light, but it can spill everywhere. But when paired with a clipping mask or lasso tool, it becomes a focused beam. You're able to render gradients, blush, subsurface glow, or color transitions with complete precision, isolated to just the parts you want. This combo turns the soft brush into a controlled rendering powerhouse, letting you work fast while still looking polished. And when paired with a good understanding of lighting, this brush can carry entire portraits on its own. And while there's some variations to the soft brushes, which I've included the most useful ones in the brush pack below, the general purpose remains the same. But despite how good the soft brush is, we all know that with great power comes great responsibility. And using the soft brush too much is one of the biggest traps that beginner artists fall into, and often leads to muddy everything. And this is why every professional artist will pair the soft brush strategically with the last brush that we have to talk about. Now onto the brush that every pro artist swears by, the hard brush. This tool is brutally honest, unlike the soft brush, which is exactly why so many beginner artists are scared of it and just use the soft brush instead. I know I was certainly like that at one point, and I even made a challenge to overcome it, which I would also certainly recommend trying as well. But if you understand this last trick, you'll be able to use it much better. Before we get to that, you should understand this one thing most people overlook. The hard brush teaches shape design. Since it doesn't auto-blend or hide your strokes, you're forced to learn how to control angles, taper lines, and place values in ways that feel solid. This builds a brush discipline. Every stroke either adds structure or breaks it. So even though at first glance it seems boring, I mean, it's literally just a circle, right? But in the hands of a skilled artist, it becomes a sculpting tool. That's why it's the primary brush used by artists like Sam Does Art, WLOP, and many more. If you study their work closely, you'll notice that large parts of their paintings, especially backgrounds or non-focal zones, are just confident, clean, opaque brushstrokes laid down with a hard, round brush. So how would us newbie artists use it? A powerful trick is to use a pressure-sensitive low opacity. Most beginners use the hard brush at 100% opacity and just smash down strokes, which even for a professional artist would be hard to control. But if you drop the opacity to around 30%, use a brush with the correct optimized pressure sensitivity and layer your strokes, then it's perfect because you can still get razor sharp edges when needed, but you also gain control over gradients and a light fall off, all with the same brush. This is also the primary technique I used in my hard brush challenge. The next game-changing combo that is vital for you guys to understand is the pairing of the hard brush with the smudging tool. Just like the pairing of the soft brush with the lasso tool / clipping mask, the pairing of the hard brush with the smudging tool is another match made in heaven. You can see this combo in the painting process of countless professional artists. But why does this combo work so well? Because the hard brush lays down sharp, confident edges and shapes, while the smudge tool lets you push and sculpt those edges without losing their structure. It's like doing a hard sculpt with clay and then going in with your thumbs to soften transitions, but only where needed. So one of the biggest strengths of the hard brush and also the soft brush is their simplicity. That makes them perfect for beginners because there's no confusion or guesswork, just a clear, predictable control. And for advanced artists, that same simplicity means ideas flow straight from brain to canvas without resistance. Sometimes limiting your tools is what actually gives you the most freedom. These brushes are direct, reliable, and incredibly powerful when mastered. But now it's up to you to put this knowledge into practice and to use the tips and tricks I've provided. Remember to check out my website for the collection of the best fundamental brushes I've carefully perfected after hundreds of hours of art. Share this video with a friend to help them out, and like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.